In this video, we're going to talk about installment buying. And installment buying is when a person wants to purchase an item with a specified cost or wants a loan for a specific lump sum of money, such as maybe an appliance purchase or some car loans or even like things like mattresses or furniture, big items that they don't have money to pay for all at once. And so instead, they go into an agreement with the seller that they will repay this item, the purchase or the cost of this item, over a fixed amount of time. And typically, these repayments are monthly and they are usually called installments. And for the installment loans in this section, we're going to assume the lender computes the simple interest for a purchase, then adds it to the cost of the item, and then takes that total of the price of the item and the cost or the interest, and then spreads it out over monthly payments. So below you can see I've got a list of some helpful formulas that we're going to use when we do some examples. So I'm just going to keep that handy while we do installment buying example 1. So Zuzu bought a computer for $450, including tax. She did not make a down payment. She financed all $450 for 18 months at 10% interest. What is her monthly payment? Okay, so when we want to find the monthly payment, we need to figure out how much money is she actually borrowing from the bank, and then we need to divide that up amongst all the months that she's making these payments to figure out how much she has to pay back each month. So let's think about how much she has to borrow from the bank. So she clearly has to borrow the $450 because that's the cost of the computer. That includes tax, so we don't have to factor that in, and we don't have to factor in any down payment because she's not making one. So the other thing that we have to factor in is how is the finance charge, because she's going to owe more than $450. She's borrowing $450, but they're going to charge her a finance charge. So we're going to start with calculating that. So to find the finance charge, what we're going to do is we're going to use the simple interest formula, which is just I equals PRT, principal times the rate times the time. So we're going to try to find the interest by taking the principal, which is $450, times the rate as a decimal, so that'd be 0.10. Since 10% as a decimal, we move that decimal 2 spots to the left, gives us 0.10. And then time is always in years. And so since she's making payments for 18 months, we can just take 18 months divided by 12. So we're taking the number of months divided by 12, and that'll give us the years. And so if we do that, we end up getting 1.5 because 18 months is just 1.5 years. And so if we multiply that all out, so I'm just going to come over to my calculator and do 450 times 0.10 times 1.5. That gives us $67.50. So that's the amount of money that the bank charges Zuzu on top of the $450 in exchange for loaning her money. And so now when I find the monthly payment, all I have to do is add the cost of the item, which is $450. So that's the amount she's borrowing. Now, had she made a down payment, that would be less. But since she's not making a down payment, she's borrowing all $450 plus the finance charge of $67.50. So we're going to add those together. So I'll do that first. So we have already got $67.50 in the calculator. So I'll add $450 to that, and that gives us $517.50. And so that's the total amount that she needs to pay the bank back. And then she's going to take that amount and just divide it by 18 since she's making 18 payments. And so it's already in my calculator. I just need to do divided by 18, and that gives me a monthly payment of $28.75 per month. So she'll make this monthly payment for 18 months, and then that will allow her to pay off that $517.50. So you can see when you buy an item and you use installment buying, so you don't pay cash for the item ends up being more expensive. So this computer that she is advertised for $450 is really $517.50. All right, so now let's do installment buying example 2, where we calculate a monthly payment again. This one's a little bit more complicated though. Eric bought a dryer for $800 and he made a 20% down payment. Okay, and he financed the rest over 2 years. Find the monthly payment if the finance charge was 8% of the amount financed. Round to the nearest cent. Okay, this one's a little different because he made a down payment. So we need to first figure out what that down payment is going to be. So we're going to find the down payment, just going to abbreviate DP, by just taking the price of the item, which is $800, and we're going to multiply that by the percent as a decimal. And I'm using this formula right up here at the top. So down payment is the percent down as a decimal times the cost of the item. So the percent down is 20%, and you have to be careful because there's two percentages. So there's a 20% down payment percentage, and then there's 8%, that's the interest. So you got to read carefully with these problems. So the 20% as a decimal is 0.20. So I'm going to take 800 times 0.20, and that gives me $160. So that's the amount of money that Eric is going to pay the store just right up front. So he gives them $160. So because of that, he doesn't actually have to borrow all $800. So to find the amount financed, so that's the amount that he needs to borrow from the bank, we're going to take the cost of the item, which is $800, minus the down payment. And so now I'm looking at the second formula above. So cost of the item minus down payment. And so $800 minus $160 is $640. So that's how much Eric is going to borrow from the bank. Now we need to figure out how much the bank is going to charge him in interest, which is called the finance charge. So to do that, I'm going to use the simple interest formula. I'm just going to do I equals P times R times T. So my principal in this case is $640 because that's what he's borrowing. And my rate is going to be that 8% as a decimal. So I take 8%, 8, and I move the decimal 2 spots left, giving me 0.08. Okay, and then it's no longer a percent. And then the time is time in years, and so in this problem they give me 2 years, so I don't have to do any converting, so I just multiply by 2. And so in my calculator I'm going to do 640 times 0.08 times 2, okay, and that gives me the finance charge, so 102.40. And so now I need to figure out, well, what does the buyer need to pay back? So they have to pay back, well, there's two things. There's the $640, which is the amount that that they're borrowing for the item, plus the interest charge or the finance charge of $102.40. So I'm going to add $640 plus $102.40 to find the total that this person needs to pay back. So I've already got $102.40 in my calculator. I can just add $640 to that, and that gives me a total of $742.40. And so now that we know the total that needs to pay back, now we need to figure out, well, how much is that per month? So just take the total that they need to pay back and divide it by the number of months. And in this case, they told us that he's going to pay over 2 years, so we're just going to take 2 times 12, which is 24 months. So 2 years is the same thing as 24 months. So I'm going to take $742.40 and divide by 24, and that's going to give me my monthly payment. So I end up getting $30, and we always round to the nearest cent, which is the hundredths place, 2 digits after the decimal. So this is going to be 93 cents. So Eric will make a payment of $30.93 a month for 2 years to purchase this dryer. And then again, just like I mentioned in the last problem, it's really important to notice that this $800 dryer is really not $800. It's $742.40 plus that down payment he made above. And I know it doesn't ask us to do this, but just for fun, let's just add those together real quick. So $742.40 plus that down payment that he paid in the beginning, you don't want to forget about that, gives us this total installment price of $902.40. So this dryer for $800 is really costing Eric $902.40. So it's important for him to understand, what that total cost is, or that total installment price.